right? Ezra chapter 6. I think this week's set of lessons are all going to turn around the theme of the reason. And let's title this one, Be the Reason for Approval, because in this chapter, it's going to pick up on kind of the cliffhanger we mentioned from last week, and that is the request of the people of the land to the king to stop the work that the people of Israel are doing to complete the temple. And having received that request, King Darius is going to order a search of the archives where someone's going to find a proclamation or a decree going back to the days of King Cyrus at the very beginning of the book of Ezra, chapter 1. And they're going to find confirmation that in Cyrus's first year, he ordered not only that the people be allowed to return, but they be specifically commissioned to rebuild the temple with the expenses to be paid from the royal treasury, and moreover, with the vessels of the house of God that were taken by Nebuchadnezzar, return to their proper place in the house of God once it's rebuilt. And seeing that, Darius is going to say, look, stay out of their way. Not only are you to stay out of their way, you're to make sure that their expenses are paid from the tribute paid on your side of the river or in your province. And so with that, not only are you going to make sure that they're not interfered with and that their expenses are paid from the royal treasuries, you're going to also make sure that they have everything they need to make sacrifices to God, and in particular, on behalf of the king and his sons. And anyone who alters the order, as we referenced before, is going to be impaled on a beam pulled from their own home. And finally, he's going to say, not only that, may God defeat anyone who finds any way to try to get in the way of their progress. And so the king's going to seem to be not only willing to approve what the people of Israel are requesting, but he's doing it enthusiastically. And his level of enthusiasm is going to motivate his officials to assist the people of Israel. The chapter also going on to describe the way in which the people prospered during this time and just got it done with the blessings of God and the king. Understanding that after that, they are going to go ahead and finish by celebrating the Passover in its proper month at its proper time. And as usual, a few things caught my attention this time, going back to something we might have mentioned from the Bible Project. And the way I thought it was pretty cool that they described this type or this section of scriptures as being kind of a hyperlink to other chapters or books in the Bible. And so out of all the ways that God could have affected the heart of the king to make him favorable toward the request from the people of Israel, one of the things that we'll see going on simultaneously in books like Daniel and Esther are things we've mentioned before. We didn't specifically say it, but the book of Esther is a book where a man named Mordecai was actually involved in saving the life of the king. So he had come to the attention of the king by basically doing some heroic acts that saved the king's life. Likewise, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel had all been recognized for being just a bit wiser. Actually, it's going to say 10 times wiser than the wisest wise men in the king's court. And so while God was moving the heart of the king, there were people that they could physically see who, even though they came from a nation of conquered people or slaves, which is basically what Israel was at this time, they were slaves who were actually distinguishing themselves in the kingdoms to which they had been carried captive. And so out of all the ways that God could have moved the hearts of the kings, he seems to have done it through people who were the reason why they had a favorable perspective toward the people of Israel, understanding that it's not just one king we're seeing. It's going from Cyrus to Ahasuerus to Artaxerxes and now to Darius, who has not only given them approval for what they're requesting, he's giving them enthusiastic approval that has helped make the way straight for them to succeed in finally getting the temple built. Understanding that something else caught my attention, and that is not only the way that God moved the heart of kings like Cyrus and Darius, but the way he moved the heart of former enemies. Understanding that the last portion of the last verse is going to describe the way in which even the king of Assyria, their former enemies, had his heart turned towards Israel as well, and he even helped them. Reminding me of a passage in the 23rd Psalm that starts off, "The Lord is my shepherd," and moves on to say, "He sets a table before me in the presence of my enemies." And so the beauty of this passage is the way in which God has turned a former enemy into an ally, which reminded me that these Mordecais and Daniels and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were not just high quality or high IQ people. They seem to be high IQ, high character people, which reminded me of something that came across my news feed within the last week, and that was the Golden State Warriors, the famous basketball franchise that's won a few championships. One of their hiring principles, I've probably mentioned before, is to acquire talent that is both high IQ and high character because of the potential that it has to create success. And in this chapter, once again, while God could have just miraculously moved the hearts of all of these kings, he did it in partnership with servants who seemed to be both high character and high IQ people. Not only moving just kings to approve their request, but creating peace with kings who were former enemies. And for those people of the land who refused to make peace with them, Psalm 23 seems to make it clear that God was likewise willing to make a table for them in the presence of their enemies.